Good morning. Welcome to our Placer County Transportation Planning Agency meeting. Today is August 27th, and we are going to start with the flag salute. And our supervisor, DeMattei, is going to lead us. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Just took my asthma medicine.
Okay, so we're going to start out with the clerk. Please read our meeting procedures.
Should we do roll call first?
Oh, let's do roll call
Okay.
first.
Yeah. We know who's here. Broadway.
Here.
Brown.
Here.
Cortez.
Present.
DeMattei.
Yes.
Dowden Calvillo.
Present.
Jones.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay, wonderful. Now let's read the meeting procedures.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us. Agendas are available on the back table here in the board chambers or available on the PCTPA website. If you'd like to speak during the meeting, please direct your comments to the board. If you are here in person, we ask that you come to the podium as the meeting is being recorded. If you're joining us by Zoom, you can signal you wish to speak by using the raise hand button. If you're on the phone, press *9. We'll call on people in the order requests are received. If you would like to comment on an item that is not listed on the agenda, please do so under public comment. The Brown Act requires the public have an opportunity to comment on every item on the agenda. We ask that you please keep your comments to 3 minutes and invite you to consider stating your name for the record this morning. Your time will be monitored. If you're speaking at the podium, a yellow light will turn on to let you know that you have 1 minute left to wrap up. For those participating online, you'll hear a beep when you have 1 minute remaining. Thank you for your participation.
Thank you for that. We're going to move on to item C, agenda review.
No changes to the agenda, Madam Chair.
Okay, then we're going to move on to item D, AB 2449.
No board action required relative to AB 2449.
Okay, so then we're going to go to approval of the minutes from June 25th.
I'll move approval of the minutes after you ask for public comment if there is any.
Okay.
And a second?
The public comment comes after our approval of the minutes.
Yeah, I second.
Okay, we have a motion by Dowden Calvillo and a second by Cortez.
Right, and we do not engage to do roll call.
Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Now we're moving on to public comment. Item F, persons may address the board on items not on this agenda. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Anybody want to comment? We don't have online participants.
Anybody online? We do.
Oh, we do?
Online.
Oh, well, good, wonderful.
No one has raised their hand.
Okay, we're going to move to item G, consent calendar, Placer County Transportation Planning Agency. Does anyone want to pull anything off of the consent calendar?
No.
No, anybody from the public? No?
All right, move to approve.
Okay, motion by Cortez,
A second?
second by Broadway. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Okay, we're going to move on to H, public hearing, draft Placer County 2050 Regional Transportation Plan, RTP, and supplemental environmental impact report. Take it away, Mr. Costa.
Thank you, Chair Jones, and good morning, members of the board and public. My name is Mike Costa. I'm a principal planner with PCTPA. I'm very excited to be presenting this item before the board today. Just to really quickly recap, this is not an action item. This is a public hearing where we are providing the opportunity for members of the public and the board to ask questions about our currently available draft 2050 Regional Transportation Plan, or RTP, and the Supplemental Environmental Impact Report, or SEIR. So what is the RTP? As the board may be familiar, this is a long-range plan. In this case, this is a 25-year plan that we do have to update every 4 to 5 years. We actually do the update process concurrently with our partners at the Sacramento Area Council of Governments, or SACOG, and so we do update this plan every 4 years. And basically, this plan outlines our forecasts for the future growth of the region, and then it pairs transportation investments, programs, and strategies to essentially offset or address that growth in our transportation network. And again, one of the important things to note that this is a process that is heavily involving public input. And also, of course, we have presented this to the board a couple of times, and it is something that we definitely appreciate the board's input and direction on, as it is our guiding document for the agency. So one of the things that's important to note, as I mentioned, it does look at forecasts. The RTP does project what the future, in this case out to 2050, looks like and how the region will be growing. And then it pairs transportation investments, projects, and programs to address that growth. And those transportation projects are actually taken from all of our local jurisdictions, general plans, all of their capital improvement programs. And we really don't just start from scratch. We utilize your jurisdiction's growth projections and your projects to incorporate into this long-range planning document for our transportation system. And then, of course, we do, as I mentioned, go out to the public and we weigh priorities. So we look at how does the public view our transportation network and what do they prioritize in terms of different modes and different projects for our transportation system. And then lastly, of course, we do definitely appreciate and require the board's direction on the overall policies, objectives, and strategies that we have identified in this plan. And then the board is also required to adopt this plan when the process is completed and update and also certify the supplemental environmental impact report. So that is kind of an overview of how this project is development. And one of the things that I mentioned is, I did talk about us partnering with SACOG on developing this plan. And the differences between our plan and their long-range plan essentially is that our plan does focus solely on transportation projects, whereas SACOG's plan is required to look at land use and the designations of future growth in our region. We utilize that kind of to help inform some of our transportation decisions, but we don't actually identify in the level of detail that SACOG does that they're required to under Senate Bill 375 for the land use component and their sustainable community strategy. So that's what our plan does not have. The other thing that our plan follows very closely to SACOG is SACOG, as the Federal Metropolitan Planning Organization, is required to do federal air quality conformity checks with their plan, and that feeds into our plan. And so we don't do that, but SACOG's plan does that on behalf of ours. So that's why our project list mirrors what is in their long-range plan, which is known as the 2025 blueprint. And then lastly, both plans, it's important to note, have to be financially constrained. So we do have to match our forecasted revenues with our expenses. And so the plans can't be a wish list per se of all projects in the region, but they do have to conform to what we project to be future revenues that we'd receive in federal, state, and local funding. One of the things that's important to note is that the Regional Transportation Plan does not usurp your local land use control. So this is a plan, again, that takes into account what your local jurisdiction's growth and planning efforts forecast and what they essentially produce for projects, but then we incorporate that into our transportation network. So we don't have any sort of overriding control over your local general plans or your specific plans or anything of that nature. The other thing to note, too, is that, while we do touch on air quality conformity from federal and state requirements, this is essentially not a very specific look at, projects and their respective impacts on air quality or how land use is impacting or growth is impacting air quality or even how freight is impacting air quality. So we don't look at project-specific air quality conformity. We look at just collective air quality conformity and how that impacts the region, and that's done, again, at the SACOG level. So our plan incorporates into their plan for that matter. And then specifically, too, we do highlight forecasted revenues in our plan, but we don't necessarily go into the very specific details because it'd be hard to look out 25 years to know exactly what types of grant programs that we're going to receive. But we do categorize our revenues into federal, state, and local dollars that we anticipate in general broad categories. Another important thing to note is in our plan, we do list in Appendix E all of our projects that are contained within the fiscally constrained plan. And those projects are listed as either programmed, planned, or something that is beyond the RTP or beyond 2050. And it's important to note that programmed projects, usually projects within the first 5 to 7 years of the plan, those are projects that are almost guaranteed and certain to be delivered with guaranteed or secured federal funding or state funding. And so that's important. And those projects usually are reflected also in SACOG's Metropolitan Transportation Improvement Program, or MTIP. And that's where things really matter. So all of those projects, I should say, are captured in our fiscally constrained list, but they're also, more importantly, captured in the MTIP. Any projects that live outside of that window, or 5 to 7 years, are considered planned, and those projects essentially, when they are ready to be developed or when they are ready to be implemented, that's when we can bring them into the MTIP, and that's really what matters for actually securing those dollars. And so there is not as much risk if a project is not in the first 5 to 7 years. It is more important that they're in our plan, but again, if they really are to be delivered, or if there's a concern that a plan isn't reflected, it's really important that it would be in the MTIP versus the RTP. As I haven't talked about yet, but I've mentioned in prior meetings that our RTP contains really 3 primary components. We have our policy element, which is the guiding policies, objectives, goals to lead our strategies and programs. We have an action element, which talks about essentially the conditions of our county, our forecasted growth, and then how we plan to address that with our transportation system. We do have, as I mentioned, the fiscally constrained financial element. And then, of course, we are required to do a programmatic environmental impact review of this project. And in this particular case, we are actually supplementing the 2040 RTP's environmental impact report, because there wasn't a substantial change in the types of projects that we presented in that document versus now. And so that's why we are creating a supplemental EIR in this RTP update. Just very high-level snapshots. I'm not going to go through everything on the slide, but it does give you an idea of kind of what we highlight in terms of current conditions in our region, as well as future growth conditions. We are projected to grow over 500,000 in population. We're roughly around 510,000, with over 54,000 new housing units projected to be developed in our region between now and 2050. We do, of course, have a projection and growth of roughly 60,000 jobs in our county in the future, and that would continue to be the second highest amount of overall jobs in the 6-county Sacramento region in Placer County. We do currently have an average wait time of 28.5 minutes in our general commute, with 34% of our commuting workforce that lives in Placer County commutes outside of the county, and so it'll be interesting to see. We can't quite project what that looks like in the future, but we will continue in updates to look at that. And then, of course, it's no surprise that our traffic, especially on our major corridors like I-80 and State Route 65, continues to grow. And so one of the things that the transportation project list and our programs and strategies really look at in the RTP is how do we address some of that congestion with the projects that are selected in the fiscally constrained project list. By the numbers, again, I mentioned fiscal constraint. We are anticipating about $5.5 billion in federal, state, and local funds that are going to be essentially received or somehow retrieved and acquired in the next 25 years. And to translate into 2050 dollars, that is roughly $8.7 billion. So we do have to look at both current dollars and year of expenditure dollars for our forecasting and in revenues. And then this is just a very high-level snapshot of the categories that we program the federal, state, and local dollars into. Our highest category of projects in the RTP is maintenance and rehabilitation, followed by road and highway capacity increasing projects. Again, a lot of that is to address our future growth that we anticipate in this region and to alleviate some of that congestion that we see on our corridors. But it's important to note also that we do have roughly $800 million in funding for transit capital and operations. And then, of course, we do have funding for active transportation to the tune of almost, it's $400 million. And then, of course, we have system management and general operations, or internet technology, ITS type programs. As I mentioned, we are required to conduct an environmental impact review of our RTP. And as I mentioned earlier, also we, in this case, conducted a supplemental environmental impact review. We analyzed 4 different project alternatives: a no-build alternative, a road emphasis alternative, transit enhancements, and a fiscally unconstrained alternative. We did find in the cumulative impacts of our projects, again, we didn't go to a project-specific level, but a cumulative level, we did have less than significant impacts in aesthetics, air quality, land use, population, and wildfire fields and areas of review, but we did have some significant and unavoidable impacts in tribal resources, transportation, circulation, greenhouse gas, climate change, energy, and agricultural resources. And so what that means essentially is we do have a set of mitigation measures that have been established that are meant to offset some of those impacts. And again, it's important to note that while our project looks at cumulative environmental impacts, the important thing is that when agencies actually deliver projects, they are required to actually do a full environmental impact report for their own respective projects. And so that's where even further mitigation measures and actions would be taken at the local agency level that aren't reflected in this plan. And then it's important to note that when we released this supplemental EIR for public review on July 30th, which was concurrent with the release of our RTP document, we did actually receive some comments from the United Auburn Indian community, and those comments were actually subsequently addressed, and we re-released our supplemental environmental impact report on August 13th. And so overall, those comments and concerns that UAIC identified and some additional proposed mitigation measures were incorporated into our SEIR. It's important, again, for community engagement and input in this process. We did some extensive outreach during the course of development of this plan. We had 2 official rounds of outreach in 2022 and 2023, which involved surveys, it involved pop-up events, it involved me going out to your respective councils and meetings to present the RTP and information. And of course, we had several different email blasts, social media blasts, where we went out and asked for comments and solicited input in the prioritization of projects. So again, that's a picture of Matt out there in Colfax. So all of us, all hands were on board when we actually went out and did our input.
Looks like blackface.
So as I mentioned, this was a long process. We started this effort when we asked our agencies to begin submitting their projects back in early 2022, and now we are in 2025. In between, we did adopt an interim RTP, if you may recall, last year, but essentially we're now kind of coming to the final stage of the development of this process. And so after today's public hearing, our public comment period will close in the end of September. And then we will anticipate bringing back the final document for the board's approval in December of this year, along with certification of the supplemental environmental impact report. So as I mentioned, comments for the current RTP draft and SEIR are due at the end of September. Please submit those comments to my colleague Corey Peterson. And then at the end of this presentation, which if there are no questions, I am recommending that the board open up this item for public hearing to further solicit input on the draft RTP and SEIR. That concludes my presentation. Happy to answer any questions.
Okay, board members, questions? Want to wait till after public? We'll open it up for, let's open it up for public comment. Any? No? Okay, we're going to bring it back to the board then if no comments or questions. Actually, I do have a question. You said that 34% of the workforce lives outside of Placer County. I'm just wondering, how'd you calculate that?
So that actually was 34% of the Placer County's workforce commutes out of the county.
Okay.
And that is looking at information that we retrieved from the census, from the decennial census.
Okay, well, that's easier to calculate the county workforce, not just anybody working, okay.
Madam
Because they
Chair?
all travel down Auburn Folsom Road and Douglas.
I had a question, too.
Yes.
Just was wondering if you could quickly summarize the concerns from the United Auburn Indian community. Was it really with regard to 65 and Thunder Valley? Was that, or I just was curious?
Sure, it wasn't actually a project level concern. One of the concerns they had was the approach that we had taken in the environmental impact report, where originally we had combined cultural and tribal resources into one category of review. And that was done because we had done that in the 2040 RTP, which again, this is a supplemental to that. And so they asked us if we could actually separate tribal resources as its own focused element, which we did. And then they also further recommended some mitigation measures to offset some of those significant and unavoidable impacts, which we incorporated those as well.
Excellent. Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate that. And I also just wanted to take this opportunity to thank staff. This has been such a long process. Those of us that sit on SACOG too understand that. So thank you. It's been a long ride to get to this point. We're not quite at the finish line, but we're getting closer. So thank you so very much for paying such close attention and helping us, make sure that we get what we need with the SACOG document as well. So thank you.
So my other question is, could you tell us a little bit about the mitigation measures that you're incorporating, or?
Yeah, without going into kind of overall detail, the mitigation measures really look at kind of conditions that local agencies should consider. Again, when local agencies do a specific project, they are required to do their own environmental impact report for those specific projects if they trigger that under the California Environmental Quality Act. However, the mitigation measures contained in our plan are, in some ways, I would consider them high level or broad, and it kind of pushes agencies to consider what to use in mitigation if they come across impacts with their respective projects. So we don't necessarily have an enforcement mechanism in our plan. It's more of a guiding kind of set of mitigation measures that agencies can implement when they potentially cross that CEQA threshold for their respective projects.
Okay, great, thank you. Anybody else, questions? No? Okay, well, I believe this is just a hearing, correct? Want to thank you very much for the hearing, and like she said, we have a lot of years wrapped up in this report, coming to an end soon. All right, thank you. So we're gonna move on then to, let's see, where are we? We are on M, Executive Director's Report.
That went fast.
Real fast.
Well, good morning, everybody, and I hope everyone had a nice break and a good summer. And one last thing before I dive into what's on the slide there, just about the RTP. Mike and Corey tackled this together, and one of the things they didn't mention is they struck over 150 pages from the old document. One of the things we want to do as an agency is, we understand that these are big technical documents. It's one of the biggest things we do. It's one of the core responsibilities that we have to do as an RTPA, and we want it approachable to the public. So we really sort of try to talk to them about, cutting as much of it as so is as user-friendly as possible. And so really, really good job on behalf of staff, and we're going to look to do that even more the next time around, so when we have a little bit more time. But moving to the Executive Director's Report, I'll start with grant activity, and old news by now, because I think we found out on the 6th or 7th of July, but we were successful in winning the build grant, the U.S. build grant for the State Road 65 general purpose and auxiliary lanes. That's over $22 million. It's probably the largest federal grant we have secured in more than a decade. We will take that money, pair it with over $5 million of SPARTA money, developer impact fees, to make those improvements on State Road 65. So it just really, really good effort on everybody. So everybody who helped support, and of course Congressman Kiley, who was just a steadfast champion. We were the only, quite frankly, non-red state, blue state, to get any build money from the administration, and we were the only build grant recipient in the state of California. So everybody should be really proud of that. So all of you who went to DC or talked to the congressman when he was back in the district, I just want to say thank you. Nobody does this alone. Rick led a great amount of work, and I will say I've had a lot of people say, well, geez, you guys pivoted quick, and because you did this, do we not need a sales tax measure anymore, or this or that, right? But people don't remember, we had this running in parallel to the measure effort, and we were originally going to match these federal dollars with sales tax monies, and when sales tax monies did not materialize because we didn't, win the measure, we pivoted to SPARTA. So there's been a lot of work over this, and the Thursday before it was due and the week before, you might have noticed the administration cut all of the funding to the National Environmental, the NEVI program, right, the electric vehicle program. We, in our original grant application, had 2 electric buses in there, and we were sitting around thinking about this. We said, we don't know. We conferred with the congressman, and we decided that we were going to pull certain parts of scope out of our build grant to make it as competitive as possible. And so staff and the consultant team worked over the weekend and all the way up to the deadline the following Tuesday. And so a lot of work went into this. So Rick and everybody else, congratulations, because not only did we give the congressman something to help advocate for, but we gave him something that was just technically so proficient. The benefit cost analysis for this project is about an 8. To give you an idea, a good project has a 2. So we really, at a technical level, Rick and his team demonstrated how great of a project this was and how worthy it was of federal funding. So we'll take our quick victory lap, and then we're gonna get back to work. Item 2, the Build America Bureau. We still have a grant out there. We'll hear mid-September. It's the Regional Infrastructure Accelerator Grant, or RIA, for $2 million. This is important because it would help us with financial, legal, and administrative support for the State Road 65 express toll lanes. And the great thing about this federal money is it requires no local match, so we don't have to match it at all. And just for clarity, we have the Build Grant Project Phase 1, which is a new general purpose lane between Blue Oaks and Galleria, and then also an auxiliary lane from Pleasant Grove to Galleria, both on the southbound side. Those are going forward. But as I came to basically in the beginning of the year, we still are moving forward with express toll lanes on State Road 65 as well, because what the Build Grant Project will get us is it'll help us catch up, but we've got to keeping up, and we've still got 16,000 homes coming, in Lincoln and Roseville and Placer One and all of that. So we've got to keep going. And this accelerator grant will allow us to take some federal dollars and keep going with the next phases of State Road 65. I briefed you before the summer break that we did lose the Solutions for Congested Corridors grant. In July, David and myself had a debrief with CTC staff. So what we wanted to do is learn as much as we could from the loss, so we could give them even a better value proposition in the next cycle to increase our win probability. We had a great phone call with CTC staff. They were very honest, they were very forthcoming, and it helped a great deal, and it gave us a great deal of insight into what we have to do in the next phase to secure state dollars. And so that leads into that 4th bullet, which is the fact that we won the Placer Sacramento Gateway Update. So that's a $520,000 planning grant. And you might think, well, that's just $520,000, but that is to basically redo the original Placer Gateway plan, which has about a 4 to 5 year shelf life, and it's sort of out of useful life. So we have to sort of revalidate and rethink that plan. And so the insight we got from CTC will help us as we're reimagining that plan, and we have to have an approved plan in order to compete for all of those big dollars. And that's why you'll note that while this plan's only $520,000, the last plan led to $133 million of funding that we secured, under it. So it's very important work, even though the dollar amount might not be as impressive as 22.48. So very excited about that. Just as far as the Phase 1 project, a little bit outside of the grant, we are currently negotiating with a consultant and the consultant procurement documents right now. As a reminder, that project is about 95% designed, so we've got to get it into final design and get all the regulatory permits, and we're also awaiting from federal staff our paperwork for the build grant. So Rick and I are managing that actively right now. We would anticipate construction to be turning dirt out on State Road 65 in spring of '27. Quite frankly, the pacing item will be the regulatory permits. If we get them quicker, we'll move quicker. So it will not be the design work or things like that. It will be the permitted activity at the state level. So hopefully we can move that to the left and start turning dirt in '26, but we're on track for spring of '27. And just lastly, the express toll lanes, which I gave you a little bit of a primer on, the environmental revalidation on that has begun, so we're actively working on that as well. And then just lastly, boom, we also brought home some hardware. Thank you, David Melko. I-80 auxiliary lanes, we were very happy to receive the American Public Works Association, or APWA, Project of the Year Award. And I have to be honest, we weren't the only project of the year. There were categories for water and different sizes, but in the $10 to $50 million category, the Mac Daddy biggest category, David Melko brought home some hardware for us. So yes, project of the year. And I don't want to forget anybody, but there was I think there was the pump track that got an award for the Rockland pump track. Roseville got some for some of the electrification. So there was a bunch of member agencies that also did it. And just one last thing off script, you've heard that things will be changing, and as we move into 26, we're going to be losing some staff to retirement. I do want to publicly announce that David Melko, through some arm twisting and some real big public commitment, has decided to give us one more year of service.
wow, great.
So
That's good news.
while we will be losing one of our staff in December, we won't be losing two, and we're really happy to have David for one more year to help with all of that, grant work and everything he's done. So we're very excited. So you will see that reflected when the OWP comes in front of you and budget comes in front of you, to reflect the fact that David will be with PCTPA through the next fiscal year as well. So that's the end of my
Great,
report.
That's great news, great news.
I've been here since September 2005.
But I mean, how long have you've been
I've been working in in the transportation, land use, environmental field since, and I'm going to date myself,
We promise we won't count.
1980.
That's what I was getting at.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, as my kids said, I know Fred Flintstone.
We're still driving his car too, aren't we? Where's George Jefferson's cars, right? That's the ones I want.
Yeah.
All right, well, congratulations, thank you. That's a huge benefit to all of us and all of you. We appreciate it. Okay, directions, board members, directions to the staff.
Yeah, just quickly, I first want to recognize Matt and then make a recommendation. Matt took the time to come to the Rotary Club lunch and speak to the group. It wasn't a complete, hey, this is the greatest thing ever, we're glad to have our transportation planning executive there. There were some tough questions, and he was called to task for some things. He answered all the questions very well, but the best part of it was tremendously educational for everyone, even those who didn't necessarily agree with things like toll lanes. And or thought that because we had the funding that now all was great and that we didn't need it, or that we should be immediately pursuing another tax measure. So it was a great discussion, but I encourage you and members of the staff, whenever possible, to engage with those service groups and other groups so that we can provide that education, because there is a huge gap. There are still those who think that the measure passed. There are those who think that we should be pursuing immediately another tax measure and not understanding that. There are those who are opposed to toll lanes. So through an education process, we can help people understand where we are, what we do, and really what those who really make things happen, those out there who are doing the work day to day, what you do. So I'd encourage you wherever possible that the team do that. And again, thank you. It was a tremendously educational presentation.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. And just happy to do that. We will be back with PCAR in November in front of a few hundred people, right? We've been invited to come talk to them and give them an update. And of course, we attend all three chambers, government relations meetings every month. But I would just say, if any of the board has any, if you want us to show up to a subdivision HOA on a Thursday night, we're happy to do it. So if there's any sort of, any requests that come through on you, just, please let us know. We're more than welcome to be out in the community beyond what we normally do. Because there is a lot of sort of people still think that the 2016 measure passed. So, or I had somebody the other day, I was in Walmart and talking to somebody, and they thought the measure passed because they said, well, wasn't it like over 60%? So they didn't, a lot of people don't ever recognize the fact that there's the supermajority 2/3. So yeah, happy to do it. Thank you, sir.
Anybody else? Yes.
I just have a quick question. You were talking about the government relations chambers. Have you not been invited to the one for Loomis?
No.
Okay, I will get you on that email. We meet quarterly, so it's.
Sure.
But I think that it would be great to have representation at ours, because you said the 3, and I'm like, well, there's
Yep.
actually more than 3 represented on
Yeah,
this
yeah.
board, so.
Well, and we go to the meddlers sometimes too. but
Okay, yeah, so I'll
Yeah,
definitely, I'll
just
have
the
our
meddlers.
chamber reach out.
Okay.
And I was going to add on to that I had one friend who said that somebody she knew said that they passed the measure, and she said, no, they didn't. And they insisted that, yes, we did pass the measure. It was crazy, sort of vigilante. And the other question, too, that I've received is about the $22 million grant that we got from the feds, is that, you didn't need the tax measure after all, but when I share with them how much it costs to do the 2 auxiliary lanes, it's $144 million compared to $22 million, and see how much you get for, it's a little slice, a tiny, tiny slice, really. And what are we going to get for it? It costs a lot of money. And people,
Absolutely, and we want to do 2 things at the same time. We want to take a victory lap and be proud of the hard work we did to get that.
Right.
What Congressman Kiley got us, which was just extraordinary at
Exactly.
22.48, but it's being coupled with money to be less than 30 of a $350 million, so it's 10%. So we're proud, but we
Yeah.
need to keep on the message that it's just, simply not enough. I was asked these, questions at the Lincoln Chamber the other day, and in the same meeting, Lewis Holmes was handing out flyers of their open house for Liberty at Lincoln, which is great, right? Ben was there. But again, those are those 16,000 homes, and those are all going to be, they show access off Nicholas onto State Road 65. So we've got to keep going. Yeah.
Definitely. Okay, well, if there's nothing else to come before the board, there's information items in your packet. Our next meeting is on September 24th, and I hope Bruce was back by then. And so, meeting's adjourned. Thank you for coming.